All right, so our example on Friday was, in general, talking about what? That was with our holding your breath, right? So I took my whole class and did what with you? What's the first thing I did with your class in that example? Gave each of you a number and then used those numbers to do what? Randomly, one word, assign you into the different groups for treatments. I didn't care anything about you before I put you in a group. That was yesterday. That was a completely randomized design. So today, we do care about things in between. Trying to think of an example. We might do a fake example and then do a real example for the second one. Let's say, I want to word it a certain way. Okay, so write that down. So that's our scenario. And just like I've been doing recently, when I'm trying to write you a scenario, I'm trying to write it like super, super straight to the point, so we're not worried about context. All right, so what is my response variable in general here? What is my response variable? Memorization. This is as clear as I wrote it. What is our, how many factors are there? It's actually just going to be one, but that's probably because of how straightforward I wrote the problem. Like, I didn't expand on things much. Oh, man. This is going to be our one factor. So how many levels does it have? 2. So why did I say this? Because that is a variable that I think may directly impact our response variable. But I don't want to see, I want to know if standing and sitting has an impact on my response variable, not gender. So if it impacts boys and girls different, what should I do? Split them up and test them separately. So this is the only difference between today and Friday, is I know something about you before I start randomly assigning that I want to account for because it might impact my response variable. So I am still starting with and then today there's 34. So completely randomized design goes population to random. But that is not where we go with today. So we are doing something first. I am taking all of the students and doing what? By So what do I need to know there? The numbers. And I counted, I think it says 14 girls, so I'm probably counting wrong, whatever. And again, with the capital, lowercase, I'm not being picky about that yet. I would probably do capital because it's all of them, but I don't care if it's capital or lowercase for now. That gives me 20 boys and 14 girls. At this point, I am essentially doing what I did Friday twice. So I am now completely covering up all of this and just looking at boys. So if all I have are boys on Friday, what would I do with them? If this is my population on Friday, what does that directly do with my population? What needs to go here?
Randomized.
And from there, what do I do? And what am I missing? Numbers. So how many are in each of those? 10. Yeah. And then again, pretending like this is Friday, what do I then do once I've done this? Bring it back together, and I'm going to write what goes there in a second. But it comes back together there. I'm doing the same thing for girls. I have to take the girls randomly assigned. Now, here, when you get to your wording of things, what would you think to put here? Treatment 1, but then that gets confusing if you're saying now take these boys and put them in treatment 1 and you have 2 treatment 1s. So sometimes I just call it like my next number just so that it's less confusing for my explanation. Even though it's still standing, it's just easier to talk about that way. So now how many are going to be in that group? 7. A certain way I want to write this. What is it that we're comparing in general? Memorization. I don't remember how I wrote it. But we want to do it like we don't want to just all of a sudden come back and throw them all together, because we want to compare to see how it looked in the boys and then how it looked in the girls before we put them together. So you're comparing it separately with each. I thought I had it written down the way I wanted to write it. So we're comparing memorization within each. Which way did we write it last time? Comparing response variable. What was the word I used? On Friday? On Friday, I wrote compare response variable what? What? Between? Okay. Then I want to use within now. Compare memorization within boys. And then compare memorization within girls. So at that point, it's basically like going back to chapter 1. And I could, especially if I had multiple treatments, I could make a side-by-side box plot, side-by-side segmented bar graph for boys, and then a segmented bar graph for girls, and then get into my socks of comparing. Like we're starting to connect things. And that's why I wanted to write it as different. Now, am I going to now compare my boys to my girls? Yes. But at this point, we want to just compare these, and later we would then compare them to each other.
Did you figure out that it was within, or did you just write that?
Sometimes I get really picky about like if I've made other answer keys and I want to do it the same, so I don't rewrite it. But it doesn't really matter. All right, so the part that I've missed is this random assignment. So let's write our random assignment. So let's say, since I have people, there are people in the class, what's the easiest route to go here for a random assignment? What? Names in a hat. So write each student on a what? Note card is absolutely fine. I just want to make sure everybody understands the reason we would say note card is because they're the same size. So write each student's name on the same size slip of paper. At that point, what would I do? Friday, at that point, what would I do? Now, today, what should I do? Put the boy's names in one hat. So same size. What's my next important thing? How do I pick them? Not looking one at a time. And everybody's going to go a little bit different at this point. Some people are going to say instruction specific to the boy's hat, instruction specific to the girl's hat, and that's fine. I'm going to kind of write it generically to where I'm taking up less words. So without looking one at a time, select from, let's say boys, until, what could I say generically? Well, until what? I'll be specific here. These are what? Think about the way we wrote it on our design. These are assigned to treatment 1. The remaining boys' names are what? Assigned to treatment 2. Like assigned 2. And some of y'all are going to be able to write this where you can condense it a little bit more, and that's fine, but I want to write it out explicit the first time. So without looking, select one at a time from the boy's hat until 10 names have been selected. Without looking, I'm going to write the same wording. from the girls' hat until how many? And that's why I like calling it treatment 3 as opposed to treatment 1 again. So I don't have to get confusing about that. Remaining there are ways that you guys are going to be able to write this better, more condensed, when you can say selecting, people say like selecting back and forth one hat at a time until half has been selected, things like that. And you're going to start putting my wording to where, because all I did here was repeated everything I said here, but with girls instead of a different number. Some of you are going to be able to write that in a way that just condenses it by saying the same thing. That's fine. It's easier for me to be wordy and then let you guys choose to be that wordy or condense it than to me be condensed and you guys miss things in the process. So the gender aspect is called blocking with a B, blocking. And so we block for a variable that we think will directly impact our response variable. So this one is a randomized block design. Somewhere with this problem, randomized block design. So if we go from population and we do something before we go to random assignment, it is randomized block. And why do we block? We block for a variable that we think might directly impact our response variable.
Can you say that one?
Yeah, I'm going to put that. What's going to happen on the AP exam if they want you to do a randomized block is they're going to tell you the explanatory variable in words. They're going to tell you the response variable in words, and they're going to mention some other random thing. And you're like, why did they mention that? Because they want you to think about that third variable as blocking. So, third example. We're going to do something with memorization. And it's going to be memorizing 10 numbers in order as you read them on the board. There are a lot of things that we can control with that scenario. What are some things that we can control with the scenario of having to read 10 numbers and recall as many in a row as you can? What are things that we can control with that scenario? The numbers. What about the numbers? What else? The amount of time, the numbers, the amount of time, all that kind of stuff. So let's say we're going to test two things. One of them is going to be we'll just do eyes closed listening. And one of them is actually looking while the numbers come up. Okay, so we only have 2 treatments here. So I'm going to read a whole list, have people do it, and then I'm going to read a whole list and have people do it. Do you see any issues that come up there?
They can't be the same list.
Okay, so maybe they can't be the same list, because if they were, that's not fair. Well, what about...
And maybe they should have a break in between.
Maybe they should have a break in between. How do I get my groups? Who does what? What should be your answer for how do I get my groups of who does what? Who does the eyes closed and who does the not eyes closed? Okay, randomly, right? Well, we can do better than that. We can see how much better one is than the other, directly comparing two. So we have to match you with someone else in this room. Who is the person that you match up with the best? How can we decide who is the person that you match up with the best in this entire room? Grades. How else can we do it? Let's think really obvious here. Who is the person that you match up with the most that is in this room? Who walks in that door that is the most person like you? You. We can match you up with yourself. So this is called a matched pairs design, which in science they do a lot of times on twins because twins are very similar. But we can do this matching you up with yourself. So what I need you to do, so let's go ahead and start with, we're dealing with our same population. We're dealing with Leonard's, I don't want to write that big. However I write this last one, Leonard's 4th period, 2nd period students. There's still 34 of you. Well, it's not randomized block, so I'm not going directly into random assignment. So we are putting you in pairs, but your pair in this situation is going to be yourself. Student number 1. Student number 2. Theoretically, I should do what? Right all the way to? Now, the only thing I don't like about doing this example is I don't have an N here because they're all 1. But if I match you up in pairs, most of the time with this kind, N equals 2 there. All right, so now I still have something I have to decide. And this is the tiny piece of this one that people get mixed up or forget. We have 2 scenarios, eyes closed and eyes open. So now what do I have to decide? What you're going to do first. So if I have everybody close their eyes first, would that be a good idea? What are outside factors that could be impactful? The set of numbers. I might give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 the first time, and then give you something different the second time. So by chance, they're going to be different. So what can I do instead? If we're not sure which one to do, and we had groups, how do I put you in groups? One word. Randomly. So what should I do to have you decide which one you do first? One word. Randomly. But you do it randomly for yourself. So people don't carry cash anymore or money anymore. If you have a coin, get out a coin. I'm just gonna hand out some dice. So just I'll spread them out. Like all you gotta do is roll it once. So you might have to just roll it once and then hand it to somebody else. But what do we need to decide if we're using coins? If you use a coin, what do we need to decide? Heads or tails? If we do dice, what do we need to decide? So if we're doing a coin, let's say heads is what? Just make a pick.
Eyes closed.
Eyes closed. Eyes closed what? First. Let's say if you're doing a dice, what do we want to pick?
1 through 3.
1 through 3 is going to be eyes closed first. So if I put one on your desk, do it, write it down, hand it to somebody else. You've got a coin, flip it. And when y'all leave, I'll just have you leave the dice on your desk. I'll come pick them up later. Alright, so everybody needed to do this to figure out which one they are doing first. Which means on this sheet, filling out my diagram, what should I write beside of student 1? What did I have student 1 do just now? Random assignment. What did I have student 2 do just now? So that's why it's worth me taking the time to get out dice just for this example to flip it once. This is where people get mixed up, is each pair had to do the random assignment process itself.
So we are all our student 1 and then student number 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So does everybody know what they are doing first? Whether it's eyes closed or eyes open? Which one did you get?
5.
Then your eyes open first. Everybody good? They know what they're doing? Just out of curiosity, raise your hand if your eyes are closed first. Okay, raise your hand if your eyes are open first. Okay, that's good. That's a good mix. Okay. Gotta get to the right place. So I am going to read through 10, and then it'll have a blank slide, and then I'll say go. So you have to have not your pencil in your hand, or you can have your pencil in your hand, just not on your paper. So you're not writing anything. You're listening, and you're going to try to see how many consecutively you can get correct out of 10. Will somebody grab that real quick? Yeah, everybody does it all at once, yes. Did you figure out which one you were before you went? Eyes closed or eyes open? Get her figured out, and then we'll do it all together. Roll a die. Somebody's got one. Oh, one more. One more at the door. Sorry. Okay, do you know which one you were first?
6.
So your eyes, what? Open first. All right, so I'm going to say 3, 2, 1. Or no, I'll just start because it's confusing if I say 3, 2, 1. I'll read them out. I'll pause hopefully about 2 seconds in between every number. And after 10, I'll say go. All right. 1, 5, 4, 7, 0, 3, 9, 2, 7, 9. Now write. It will make this more exciting. Maybe we won't even. I'll break in between. Not we're doing numbers. So here. After random assignment, what should I go from random assignment for student 1? So it doesn't matter which one you write because they're randomly assigned to one or the other. So it'll be like eyes open. Eyes closed. And you do the same thing here, then dot, 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 down the bottom. Usually I see how many you got right in between, but we're not going to do that this time, just for fun. Try something different. All right, so same thing, but you're doing the opposite treatment now. So if your eyes were open, they're closed now. They were closed, they are open now. All right, everybody ready? 2, 3, 0, 9, 1, 0, 5, 8, 9, 2. Write them down. All right, so it is the amount consecutive you get right from the beginning. So as soon as you miss one, like if you, okay, trial 1, first number was 1. I literally did a random number generator, so I didn't do these on purpose. 5, so if only one you got right was 1, then you got 1 right. 4, 7, 0. So it's the number consecutive that you did get right. So if you missed the 4th, you got the 3rd, you got 3. 3, 9, 2, 7, 9. Anybody get them all right? You got 1 with all of them right, 2 of them with all of them right. Were your eyes closed or eyes open? Open. Closed. That's interesting. Raise your hand if you got more than 5. Okay, now leave your hand up if you had more than 5, but with your eyes open. So, okay, now raise your hand if you had more than 5, but your eyes were closed. It's interesting. Okay. Second trial. 2, 3, 0, 9, 1, 0, 5, 8, 9, 2. Raise your hand if you got all of them right on the second one. I got more right there. Okay, cool. 5, 4, 4. Cool. Let's, just for the sake of it, out of curiosity, let's see what our numbers were. So, I'm doing. This gets into what we're doing later. Which do we think might? We'll just do as open minus closed. This is beyond chapter 4, but now take your numbers and come up with one number being open minus closed. Your open number minus your closed number. As open number consecutive minus as closed number consecutive. And then I'm just going to come around and write. What? Your as open number correct minus your as closed number correct. And some people are going to be negatives, and that's fine. What did you say 4? A negative 3, 0, 6, 4. Wait, say
4.
Yours is 4, and yours is 4.
0.
Maybe. Hang on, wait. Okay.
A is 1. Oh, 1. 0. 54. 0. 1. 0. 87.
All right, so again, this is beyond the scope of what we need to deal with it for this chapter, but did we get some negatives and some positives? Yes. For the most part with our negatives, what kind of numbers were they? For the most part. Relatively low. We had a negative 7, a negative 9, but other than that, all the negatives were relatively low, right? With our positives, did we have more that were higher than our negatives, farther from 0? So, in general, it appears what? People did better with their eyes open more than their eyes closed. How we could get into that assumption or find it being statistically significant comes chapters later, but we are, as of today, concerned with this aspect of it. So, at the end over here, though, what do I need to do with all those? And so for right now, I just want to write it. This matched pairs design, which is this one, which I'll type it up in a second, is a more specific example of a randomized block design. So we are still comparing memorization for student 1. Because that's what we did first when you found your minus number. Now, eventually, we looked at all of them. Sorry, I don't have much room. So a matched pairs design is a more specific version of a randomized block design. What is the reason that we block? What is the reason we block? You block for a variable
That we think may directly
that we think may directly impact
the response.
the response variable. I think who it was doing that trial would probably impact how many they got. Makes a big difference. So we looked at you in pairs, you and yourself. Examples of how this actually works in real life are something like, one of my favorite examples because it makes sense is mosquito repellent. Different people are attracted, the mosquitoes get them differently, big time. So you would randomly decide which arm gets which mosquito repellent as a good thing to do this. But it doesn't always have to be like you being both sides of the thing here. It can be like I take 2 students from each grade and then randomly decide which would get something or something other. Twins is a very common example in science.
But why doesn't it sound block?
It is block. It's more specifically
Okay,
that.
so I was like, wait, what is it?
Yeah. Now, what I need you to understand here is today, Friday versus like last Monday, Tuesday. What are different methods of sampling? What are different names of ways I can obtain a sample? So when I do stratified, I first do what with them? Put them into groups and then select randomly from each group. What's my next one? What do I do here? Put them into groups, then some from every. What's another one?
Simple random.
Systematic, that's that continuum, put them in order. What does SRS stand for? What is the first experimental design we learned, the one from Friday? What is this one the most like over there? Most like simple random sample. If you use any vocab from this, talking about this, you are wrong. If you are talking about any vocab for simple random sample, but you mean completely randomized design, you are wrong. What is the first design we learned today? When we block, are those blocks similar within or similar between? Similar within. So that is very similar over here to what? This is the one that gets mixed up. So you cannot talk about strata when you mean blocks. Those vocab mixing up, you will get completely wrong on the AP exam. But it makes sense to think of side by side as like, okay, it's kind of like the same thing. And then my last one was matched pairs, was just more specific. So matched pairs is basically a randomized block that has 2 in every group. It just happens a lot more. So what are strata? Strata are groups that are similar within because we want to make sure that we have some of each. What are blocks? Blocks are variables that we split similar within each one because why? We think it will directly impact your response variable. So I'm trying to keep bringing those up together so that you're seeing the difference between them. I don't know if I had you write it, but I've mentioned it enough. What is a lurking variable?
Something
Something that may impact the response variable. Sometimes they're called lurking, sometimes they're called extraneous. What does it mean to be confounding? You can't tell if it is the treatment or the lurking variable making the result. You guys all come into class and you're exhausted. I did something in class today. Across the board, a lot more people were tired today. What are external factors that could have made you more tired today?
The fact that it was Monday.
The fact that it's a Monday. Spirit Week was last week. What you did this weekend. So, if I were doing an experiment with something the way you guys reacted in class, that would be a possible method of confounding because I couldn't control that, and I don't know if y'all are tired because of my lesson or you're tired because of stuff like that. Does that make sense? I'll talk about it a little bit more tomorrow.